Dear ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to see you all here virtually. My name is Almaz Jumagilde, and today we're going to talk about one very interesting topic in the frames of the Teacher Upgrade course. So today's topic is called the Comic Book Project. So basically, before starting the topic itself, I'd like to introduce you myself. As I said, my name is Almaz and I work at Center for Professional Development and Innovation. Basically, at Center we're dealing with educating ourselves. So we're studying Coursera courses, Khan Academy courses, edX courses, basically flourishing and educating ourselves. Going further, we're practicing what we have learned there in our ordinary daily classes. For instance, I teach English as a foreign language in the intercultural communication context. And there I practice many different techniques that I have learned in those previously mentioned Coursera courses, Khan Academy courses, edX courses, books, and etc. So that is how the topics come. That is how the creative great ideas appear. And today's topic, the comic book project, basically appeared on the same way. So this happens with me, with my students, and today I want to introduce you what is comic books and how English language teachers can implement comics in their own classes. So let's start. But before going into the comics, let me show what have I done. So this is the picture of me and my students. I'm sorry, this is not me. I'm here. This is one of my students who had drawn the comics. These are another students who are also dealing with comics. Some girls doing it. This is the posters that were developed by students who also had drawn the comics. That was a project, and that was only one thing that we implemented together. Let me tell you briefly about both of them, and later on we will stop on each one. So the first one, what you see here is the results of one semester work with my students. So basically, I told them, your students, your final assignment is going to be drawing comics. It was something, at first, for students, it was like, wow, amazing, we're going to have fun, group work, where a lot of drawing, creativity. Yes, that is. But actually, within the drawing comics, they have to interpret English language. They have to practice it. They have to talk to each other. They have to draw, consider plots, grammar, some writing structures, punctuation, emotions. All those things are under the iceberg. And fun at first place became a really work on English language at second place. And that was only one project. And later on, I was just sitting at the end of the semester and thinking about these posters. They were amazing. They were great. Students did their best. I guess you see it. But what else can I do? And later on, I decided to implement drawing comics or developing comics throughout the semester. So basically, what if I can somehow interrelate every single subject, every single topic around the comics? And what happened? So basically, talking about that idea, I found out that students usually somehow shy when they are talking to each other, when they are talking about their families, about their character, about their behavior, about their friends, about everything that is connected to themselves. But what if in the beginning of the year they will develop one character, one comic character? For instance, Ben or James, let it be James, who will be their comic character throughout the whole year. And they will be talking about James' family, about James' behavior, about James' characteristics, about James' life, and that shyness will disappear. And that was only the theory. Later on, I found out that actually around the James, there can be other characters, other comics characters. There can be developed a plot, a real huge text, writings, everything connected to James. And that was the beginning, the starting point of implementing comics in my English language practice. Yes. Now, going further, let me first talk about what is comics and why I think comics is amazing tool for English language. Let's agree that English is not learned only during the English language class. Why? Basically because your students and my students, they are listening to English songs. They're probably watching Netflix English movies. They're reading some texts. They are searching the internet, and English, even in the Kazakhstani context, it is around them. But I do believe that we can not only teach English, but we can relate other skills while teaching English. For instance, that will be probably amazing if your kids will be learning English and interacting with each other in English language. Probably it is great when they are having fun and still devoted to hard work. That is cool. They are learning new language and they feel relaxed. I mentioned before about being shy, being like a bit like tough. That is probably amazing when they are somehow integrating language and art, because language itself is an art. Language and creativity is another great thumb. Language and divergent thinking. So we all talk about, probably you have noticed that English language teachers, those who know English language on an appropriate high level, they are somehow divergently think, because they are searching internet, they have endless information sources. That is why it is amazing to teach them English and divergent thinking at once. Creative atmosphere and natural habitat. That is, I guess, what all teachers should be searching for. Building communicative skills without teacher. That is also one more, let us say, modern approach toward teaching, student-centered teaching. No extra headache for teachers in terms of teaching something. Yes for 21st century skills. Yes for reading, speaking, writing, project-based learning, art, all at once. And that is all can be combined in the comic books, in implementing and using comic books in your classes.
Welcome to the Comic Book Project, where creativity, learning, and teamwork all come together. The Comic Book Project began in 2001 with a handful of children in New York City. Today, there are thousands of students across the United States involved. Check it out.
Our story is about three kids. They go into a haunted school. That it was made at a long time ago, a cemetery, and they went inside. And once they went inside, the door closed and they started running and they found some scary creatures.
It's fun because like nobody's telling you how to like make characters and stuff. You get to do it yourself.
You get to express your feelings on why you draw. You get to color your pictures, and you get to show other people, like if they have trouble like writing stuff or like drawing, you can help them a little bit.
Maybe when I grow up, I'll be a publisher.
In the Comic Book Project, we write, design, and publish original comic books. We express ourselves through our voices, our interests, and our medium.
The comic book is the place like where you gotta learn how to just draw and express yourself and just have fun and let yourself be creative. You don't have to be a good drawer to be in this club. Like all you gotta do is be a man. You gotta have a big imagination, and then you're just good to go.
The Comic Book Project is about teamwork. We work together to develop a plan and then put the plan into effect.
My name is Carlos. My name is Brian.
My name is Miguel.
I'm drawing. He's revising, and he's coloring.
The process starts with thinking about our characters and storylines. Then we write.
The story I have is about a superhero. Her name is Diana Lopez.
We write.
The two characters named Ghetto Boy and JJ.
And we write.
And we started thinking of how it would be great to do a comic book about warriors that from another world.
But of course, the Comic Book Project is also about making art. After all of our hard work, it's time to celebrate.
Hi, my name is Dr. Michael Bitts, and I'm the founder and director of the Comic Book Project, where young people write, design, and publish original comic books. As the Comic Book Project celebrates its 10th anniversary, we have seen a decade full of incredible comic books by young people across the United States and around the world. This video is going to introduce you to the Comic Book Project, the process, materials, and unique outcomes. Along the way, we'll look at examples of student work to highlight the concepts. The Comic Book Project has been implemented with students from kindergarten through high school, but the ideas are universal. What we're really talking about is how creativity can bolster the learning across the content areas and specifically in English language arts. So why comic books? Most people would recognize a comic book if they saw one, but if we look at comics a bit deeper, we find an incredible tool for literacy building. A comic book is a marriage of words and art. You need both to make a comic book. And of course, you need great characters and an exciting plot. So when students create comics, they have to think about all of these things, including grammar, spelling, punctuation, and the nuts and bolts of writing. Okay, so let's get started. The Comic Book Project starts with the activity booklet, where everyone gets creative with art and writing. We begin with simple lines and shapes. What's the most creative thing that you can turn a triangle into? We also think about facial expression and the adjectives that describe those faces. Writing is important in a comic book, so students practice writing dialogue and captions. Then we put it all together by creating mini comics. First 2 panels, then 4, then we're ready to start thinking about a full-length comic book. It's very important to plan a comic book, and we use the manuscript starter to do that. This is a chance for students to think about their characters and draft the plot, remembering that every great story has a quality beginning, middle, and end. Oftentimes, the Comic Book Project is based on a theme. We've had many great themes, including the environment, leadership, financial literacy, and community building. With the main plot ready, students plan the panels of their comic books. This is a good time for a writing workshop, peer review, editing, and proofreading. With the manuscript planned, now students use the comic book canvas to create their comic books. We start with pencils for the entire comic, then color, ideally with colored pencils. Of course, many schools use technology to create their comics, which is also great. Now it's time for the cover, which should represent the contents of the comic book with dynamic images and a great title. One of the most important elements of literacy building is publishing and presenting student work. The Comic Book Project hosts exhibits for students, parents, teachers, and community members. We also create printed publications, including our annual national anthology. And let's not forget the Comic Book Project's great web galleries, where student work from around the world can be shared and celebrated. Thank you for being part of the Comic Book Project and joining us on our journey of creative learning. I know you're going to have a wonderful experience, and I look forward to seeing all the great comic books.
Okay, so you have reviewed two videos. One is Introduction to the World of Comic Books. The second is basically the interview with the founder of Comic Book Project. This is, by the way, this is it was found in USA, in California, if I'm not mistaken. Great project, and you have listened to the interview with the founder of that project. Now I want to briefly review with you the stages of developing comic book projects. So first, let's repeat that comic books is an incredible tool for developing literacy, basically language plus art. You are enabling the character, you're developing it, you're writing plot. When you're writing plot, you are developing your English, your punctuation, what else? Spelling, so all at once, as I said before. And it all starts with this process. You can start with simple questions. I guess the question of the teacher will be, what can I do before starting the actual classes, before the implementation of the comics? So please ask your students these sort of questions. What is the most creative thing you can turn a triangle into? And just show them this triangle. Believe me, you will be astonished with the results. When I first asked this question to my kids, it was like amazing. Someone said this is the home, others drew some kind of lions, that there appeared some sort of ears there. I mean, that was amazing. And for instance, in another masterpiece by one of my kids, they said, I turned it to a dropped ice cream. So you see, with the simple tasks, you're already asking your students to turn on their creative mode. Another question can be something, so we're still talking about the process, about the beginning, introduction, the comics, without even introducing the comics. So you can just ask, how many different facial expressions can you come up with drawing these three circles? Once again, many. Scared, funny, smiling, what is there? I mean, many different facial expressions. And this is not only about creativity. This is also about vocabulary, about spelling words, about expressing, about defining and naming some emotions. This is another great tool. So basically, this sort of small leading questions can turn them into writing. Here they will be just writing about their possible future comics. Something like, I want to draw comics about, I don't know, about inventing things, about animals, about human interaction, about school life, just some sort of essay. Later on, you're introducing them the panels. What is the panels? So these are these things. How can we turn one sheet of paper into several panels? I will send you some worksheets that will guide you throughout those process. But believe me, just ask them to draw something, they will do it. Okay, so on this stage, which is called drafting a manuscript, you are basically going to ask your students about the plot. Or basically you will ask them to write the plot of your story. Here are the several guiding questions that you may show to your students. For instance, you can ask them who are the characters? What do they look like? What is the plot itself? Is there any conflict or resolution? Where is the beginning of your story, the middle, and the end? So this will help them to first write the plot, write the words, practice writing, and finally, based on this, they can quickly create the comics. So for instance, you can see here that they are using those manuscripts and drawing comics. Or here. So the same, what is written in the panel 1 is drawn in the comics below. So it looks like everything is finished. The comics is ready. Probably the grades are already given. But what's next? Now you can take that student's comics books and publish it in a local newspaper, in a school newspaper, and show it to community, to school, and make your students be with you and be proud of their own works. Here it is. Another great way to finish your comic book project is to have an exhibition where you will invite students, teachers, parents, administrators, and those students who had drawn the comics. They will basically show their results, talk about their comic books, explain what did they want to do, how they did it, and that process, it actually, it feels amazing. Imagine a student who is just learning English, and throughout one semester, they have not just learned words or some grammar structures, they have worked with their peers. They implemented their creativity. They started to develop the plot. They talked a lot about it, developed the characters, had drawn it, colored it, stayed after the classes, and they did so many things. And now they are on the exhibition presenting their works to their peers, parents, and that is where proud comes from. I think that is amazing feeling. And believe me, they will remember your class to the rest of their lives. Because, I don't know, my students are still contacting me and talking about, hey teacher, remember those days? And I'm saying, yes, I do, and amazing feeling, amazing closure appears. So basically, that is only one way to implement comics. Remember, in the beginning of this lecture, I mentioned about two ways. First is about using comics as a comic book project, where you're giving some extra curricular, extra class activity, like a project that I have mentioned before. And the second one is to implement comics insert it into the classes. When you're just talking about the grammar, vocabulary, developing the plot, characteristics, describing it, every single lesson, developing it and making it more deep character. But that is what I'm going to talk about on the second lecture. For now, see you soon on the second lecture. Goodbye.